Alrighty, so this Sunday, week 3 of the NFL season continues. It's hard to believe we're at week 3 already. The Browns play Washington in Cleveland at 1 p.m. This Sunday, so I figured because I looked around and I haven't seen a ton of really good previews for this game, and being a Browns fan myself, I figured why not? And I actually think this is a pretty interesting matchup. So let's talk about the defense first. So that is kind of the elephant in the room right now with this Browns team is on Thursday, the Browns offensively pretty much dominated the entire game other than one bad pick and one miscue there. It was pretty much firing on all cylinders. I mean, it was fantastic to watch. You know, coming off of the week before at Baltimore, who now looks like very well could be the best team in the NFL. Coming off of that, seeing what the offense did against the Bengals is fantastic. And yeah, a lot of people were saying, well, don't overreact because it's the Bengals. My stance on that is yes, you're right. It is the Bengals. But the Browns played some really bad teams and really bad defenses last year, and it looked nothing like what happened at Cincinnati, or in Cleveland against Cincinnati, rather. So there is reason to be very optimistic offensively. Defensively, in game one, it was absolutely horrendous. Lamar Jackson sat back there in the pocket and completely picked us apart. Week two, the Browns... week one, the Browns shut down the run game for the most part against the Ravens. And then in week two against Cincinnati Bengals, they pretty much completely shut down the run game. But bad news is Joe Burrow threw 60 times and pretty much picked apart that secondary, similar to Lamar Jackson. So what can you do to fix that problem? Why is the secondary and the defense as a whole struggling so much? And can it be fixed? So let's answer that. Can it be fixed? No, but you can put a Band-Aid over it, okay? And I think that is very important because I think this Browns offense, if it can maintain the consistency of what we've seen against Cincinnati, similar play style, play calling, efficiency between the running backs and the passing game, just spreading the ball around. That's what this offense should be. If that can stay the same, I believe the offense is a playoff offense. Now, of course, that determines how consistent are they going to be against tougher defenses, tougher opponents, different situations. And we'll get into that. But defensively, there are major problems. Now, there are some positives. The defensive line has actually been playing really, really good. I think Larry Ogunjobi was number one in let me read that. I took a screenshot. Larry Ogunjobi is the highest graded run defender in the NFL per Pro Football Focus. Terrence Mitchell ranks top 10 among all corners in the NFL in passer rating allowed. And then Sheldon Richardson is tied for 7th in pressures among all D linemen. So there's a lot of positives there. I watched a preview of this game from, I believe it was some Washington fan or whatever, and he basically said that the Browns' interior D-line sucks. That's just not true. It's not. You can argue who we've played, going against that Bengals offensive line. That's going to have a big part of it. But even week one against the Ravens, that defensive line was getting things done as far as getting pressure and then stopping the run. But they weren't finishing a lot because the secondary was such a big problem. Well, why is the secondary such a big problem? Well, there is a lot of injuries. You look at Greedy Williams, who was supposed to be your second-string corner behind Denzel Ward, who had high expectations last year. Was, kind of injury prone, struggled a little bit, was solid, not great. But this year you were hoping to see him take a major step forward and solidify that number 2 corner spot. He was injured. And then you had Kevin Johnson, who looked absolutely phenomenal in camp. in training camp was making plays all over the field. I was saying you can go back to during training camp. I was saying Greedy Williams is going to have to earn that number 2 job because Kevin Johnson has certainly give him a run for his money. Kevin Johnson gets hurt. And then you go to MJ Stewart. MJ Stewart's not going to be, necessarily a starter, but when you look at the depth, that's a guy who you would like just to get in rotation, fill those holes, whatever. So the Browns secondary right now is Denzel Ward and then Terrence Money Mitch, as we call him, and then Tavierre Thomas. And, I don't, nothing against Tavierre Thomas. He's a great special teams player. He's very good when, you send him on a blitz, whatever. But Tavierre Thomas should not be on the field as a starting corner. And he's been playing significant snaps because of these injuries. And that you can't have that. He's getting continuously burnt every single time they pass his way. And that's a huge problem because as an offensive coordinator, you can say, okay, well, what are they going to do? They don't have anybody else. Just attack him. And that's what you're seeing. So the Browns for this upcoming game are hoping to get Greedy Williams back and get Kevin Johnson back. This is huge. This is absolutely huge for this secondary. Because for this game in particular, Washington does not have a ton of weapons. It's really Terry McLaurin and then everybody else. And Buckeye fan, love Terry McLaurin, love Dwayne Haskins. They don't have a lot to work with there. So it's going to be interesting to see if they move Denzel Ward in at slot because Terry McLaurin, that's really what he's playing a lot. You don't see him most of the time on, playing outside where Denzel Ward has been playing. I believe Denzel Ward's playing either right or left outside. I can't remember. But it's going to be interesting to see if they double Terry McLaurin or if they just move Denzel Ward. I personally would move Denzel Ward on him. Denzel Ward has played that position at a high level as well, and he can get the job done. He knows Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin knows Denzel Ward. So, and Dwayne Haskins knows Denzel Ward. So, it's going to be fun, that matchup. But also, I think it's smart because Denzel Ward has been completely locked down. Maybe not game 1, but in game 2, Denzel Ward looked like a top 4 draft pick. And he was going up against A.J. Green. And yes, you could argue A.J. Green's not a top receiver anymore. I don't know if I would necessarily agree with that statement. But I would definitely love to see Denzel Ward on Terry McLaurin, get Greedy Williams back, get Kevin Johnson back, or either one. Even if it's just one or the other, Money Mitch has been doing a fine job. There's a lot of people saying that he's been doing a fantastic job and he's this elite corner in the NFL. No, he's a 2 or 3. And really on this Browns team, he's supposed to be a 4 as far as the depth chart. And he's been playing very well. All credit to him, absolutely. But, for this Browns team, it's going to be very critical going forward to have these DBs back in the game. Because, after Washington, you got the Dallas Cowboys, Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup. You're going to have to cover those guys. And a perfect team to get acclimated, I guess you could say, back after injury, would be a good team like Washington. Because they only really have one strong weapon and the rest are just kind of guys you can, not that you don't have to give full effort, but just to get back in the motions, It's not like you're coming back immediately playing that many weapons like a Dallas Cowboys have. So, I don't know who's all going to be ready to go in that secondary for Sunday, but we definitely need another one, meaning either Greedy, either Kevin Johnson. I don't think Mitchell, or I don't think I forgot his name. I don't think they're going to be ready to go, but somebody's going to have to play one of the three. And I think it's one of the two, either Greedy or Kevin Johnson. So that's going to be interesting to watch, just because the secondary has been drastically a weakness on this Browns defense. In fact, it's been the number one weakness on the team, I would argue, in the first two games. So that's a desperate position to get back. At safety, this is a game that you're going to want Ronnie Harrison to get involved, and get up and running. Washington, for the same reasons I talked about with the corners coming back from injury, Ronnie Harrison, you want to get up to speed as quickly as possible. Yes, he's only been here a few weeks, but he's a very smart dude. Nick Saban really relied on him at Alabama, trusted him with that defense. Get him up to speed. Let him just be him, because I think he is a really good player. And Andrew Sendejo sucks so far. He's been awful. Partially because of the situation at corner with all the injuries, that puts a lot of responsibility on the safety room as well, but I just don't think he's performed well at all. And you need a guy like Ronnie Harrison, who you traded for, hoping that he could still step up and somewhat fill the hole that Grant Delpit left. You need to get him up and running. I think this is a perfect opportunity to get him on the field. Even if it's not, in a starting role, get him on the field, get him in rotation, get him comfortable. Because, like I said, week after, you got Dallas, and they got a bunch of weapons. So I'd rather you get ready now against a team where you're not as desperate, and just try to get comfortable. That's really it. He's been playing a lot of special teams, but you didn't trade for him to be a special teams player. You traded for him to start at safety, or really produce as one of your safeties, whether from depth or a starter. He's got to get more involved, and they got to get him more involved. Linebackers are arguably the number one weakness when you look at a fully healthy Browns defense. Mack Wilson may or may not be playing Sunday. I'm filming this on a Tuesday. So far, he has practiced. I think the jury's still out. I know he wants to play. He said, if it was up to me, I'm absolutely playing. But the coaches and the doctors and the team specialists are going to have to make that decision. If he does not play, I don't think it's going to be as big of a deal in this game. Not saying I don't want him on the field, because if he can, get him on the field. I want to get him back up to speed as quickly as possible, because he has got to be a big role for this team going forward. So I would love to see him get back on the field. Dwayne Haskins is going to want to hit the underneath routes, and that's one of my fears with this team so far, is the underneath shallow routes, crossing over the middle. That stuff has been wide open for everybody we've played so far. And Mack Wilson is a baller in coverage, and that would be his skill set as a linebacker on this team. So I feel like, not that we desperately need Mack Wilson, but I would love to see him back on the field, just to get him more involved. And you've seen what happened when we played Dwayne Haskins in the preseason game last season. Mack Wilson had a really good interception off of him on one of those similar routes, crossing over the middle. Mack Wilson drops back, interception. You know the deal. So I would love to see him back on the field. I already talked about the defensive line. They should absolutely obliterate this Washington offensive line. They've done, like I said, they've done a very good job in the first two games of getting pressure on whoever we're playing. But they're not able to finish because the quarterbacks are getting the ball out of their hands quick. Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, the DBs have to help this defensive line. If they do, then the defensive line can be lethal. But it just all depends what the secondary can do to help them out. So I keep wanting to say that, but Washington's without one of their starting guards, Pro Bowler, got injured. I wish I could remember his name off the top of my head. That's a huge loss for them. They don't have a lot on that offensive line. He was their best offensive lineman. And they're going to really miss him, especially in this game with those two guys, Larry Ogunjobi and Sheldon Richardson up the middle. That's going to be, I don't want to make too big of predictions, but that defensive line should have themselves a day. And like I said, I like Dwayne Haskins. I really do. But I feel like he's going to get hit a lot. So, and they also have Antonio Gibson running back out of, I think Memphis. Is that right? Yeah, Memphis. He seems like just one of these games he's going to pop off at any minute. And I really don't think it's going to be against the Browns just because I think our run defense, even though our defense has struggled a lot, the run defense has been very good over the last two games. So I feel like, he might have a decent day at best, but I just don't see that breakout game that I'm expecting from him coming against the Cleveland Browns. So Washington offensively, they're going to have to really they're going to have to hope that the three players who were expecting to come back in Greedy Williams, Kevin Johnson, and Mack Wilson, they're going to have to hope that those guys don't. That way they can attack the secondary like every team we've played has done so far, because that will be a big advantage to them if they can. So that's really the keys for Washington offensively. I don't think the run game's going to have to get going, or going to be able to get going, rather, so they're going to have to pass the football. And if the secondary for the Browns can do their job and force Dwayne Haskins to hold on to the ball, then it should be a long day for that Washington offense. And you've seen the Arizona Cardinals do a pretty good job of that this past week. So, moving on, the Browns offense. This is, this is interesting because that preview / prediction that I watched from the Washington Fan basically said that the Browns offensive line won't be able to hold or won't be able to contain Chase Young and Montez Sweat, and he said that Washington defense was a Pro Bowl level, or not a Pro Bowl, what did he say? Playoff level defense, and I legitimately laughed out loud. And that's no disrespect. Seriously, that's not meant to sound disrespectful. But you have really a few solid good pieces. I'll talk about Chase Young in a minute, but Montez Sweat's a guy who he's starting to develop really as a star defensive end, and I think he's going to get there. I think once him and Chase Young's relationship, teammate relationship gets more acclimated, and they get used to how each other plays, because, you can't do it all. You have to have some help. And some guys are speed guys, some guys are power guys, and you just have to get used to each other and how each other plays. So for Washington, they got to feel good about that defensive line going forward with those two, and I feel like Montez Sweat's starting to step up into that role, and certainly he'll have help with Chase Young. Ryan Kerrigan's a guy he's been a stud for a long time. And he's a guy who's going to have an impact. To what level, I don't know. But outside of those three, with Chase Young, Kerrigan, and Montez Sweat, I might be forgetting somebody, but there's no like huge impact player as far as like a game changer. And if you're a Washington fan, you're probably screaming because shouting a name. I'm not really prepared. I'll look over again. But anyway, so this Browns offense. So when I listened today, that Washington fan said that defensive line is going to destroy the Browns' offensive line. I already said that. And they're going to get pressure on Baker Mayfield. Here's the deal. I understand why most of other NFL fans would feel this way because they haven't seen this Browns offensive line. But I watched all of last season. Baker had like 2 seconds to hold on to the football. He was constantly running for his life. He was just getting murdered. And, there's a lot of blame to go around on why last season failed as much as it did. But the offensive line is at the top of the list. And this season, it is a 360 change. Jedrick Wills drafted 10 overall from Alabama. Jack Conklin was brung in free agency and has done a fantastic job. He didn't play this past game, but against the Baltimore Ravens, he was really good. He's coming into this game fresh, and he's going to be ready to go. Shredder and Bitonio, 2 veterans, have been there a long time, Pro Bowl. And then you have Wyatt Teller, who that right guard position was expected to be a competition, and he has taken it and ran big time. And he's absolutely performed at a high level. A couple of dumb penalties, but other than that, he's been great. And Jedrick Wills has been absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Rookie left tackle out of Alabama. Rookie right tackle out of Alabama comes in, switches to left tackle, struggles a lot in training camp. Struggles a lot. I was very concerned about him coming into the season, and he has been beyond spectacular. Beyond spectacular. He has done his job times 10. And if this is the starting point and he's still learning left tackle, this kid is going to be a stud for a long time to come. So this Browns offensive line, I believe, was like top 4. I seen the stat today. It was like maybe 4 in running and top 10 in passing protection. Baker didn't get touched against the Bengals. And against the Baltimore Ravens, who have a really good defensive line, really good defense as a whole, Baker had plenty of time. The execution was the problem. The offensive line has been spectacular. Now, they have not faced anybody like Chase Young. As a Buckeye fan, Chase Young, week after week after week, just watched him dominate every single week. It's going to be very interesting to see what they do with Chase Young. Are they going to line him up against Jack Conklin, the more experienced tackle in the NFL, or are they going to line him up against Jedrick Wills? I would love to see the battle either way. I think Chase Young is a great, great player who's got a great future in this league, but I feel like this Browns offense, if they can do anything close to what they did against the Bengals, should be absolutely fine. The Arizona Cardinals really didn't struggle against this defense. And that's, the Cardinals are amazing. Kyler Murray is spectacular. I'm not saying the offenses are the same. They're very different. But the Browns can hit you from so many different ways that, if one gets going, good luck stopping it, because that's going to open up other things. That's what you've seen in the Bengals game. Baker Mayfield, first 2, 3, 4 plays, play action, wide open, bam, 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 bam. Next thing you know, here's Chubb, here's Hunt. you can't stop it. When it gets going, you can't stop it. And that's the thing. It's just all about the game plan. And against the Ravens, you've seen absolutely nothing that you've seen in training camp or against Baltimore or against Cincinnati. It was not the same game plan. I don't know if they were just holding it because they knew, hey, the Ravens are probably going to beat us. I don't know. But you can definitely tell that this is what this offense is supposed to look like. Absolutely, this is what it should look like week after week. Now, you're going to face tougher defenses, or you're going to face different skill sets, but you got to be able to adapt. Hey, are they shutting down the run? Okay, let's hit this passing game. We have a bunch of weapons. Are they shutting down the passing game? Well, Chubb and Hunt, good luck. In my opinion, I don't want to sound too cocky, but I really think the Browns should control this game offensively and defensively. I looked for a similar score as the Cardinals game against Washington because I feel like it's just going to be similar, where the Cardinals pretty much dominated Washington, fought back a little bit. It was solid, but I don't think they match up well at all. And if Cleveland gets these injured players back, they're not going to be at full speed. But Washington does not have the weapons to where you really have to worry. Like I said, they have a couple pieces, but it's nowhere near what it could be, and I don't think they're going to be able to contain that defensive line. And, I really hope Dwayne Haskins doesn't get hurt because I think he's going to get beat up a lot. So that's my thoughts. I think the Browns win this game.